Last night, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in the Obama and Biden administration, Julián Castro, also acknowledged President Biden failed to meet expectations. He, of course, launched his own bid for president back in 2020, where he competed with Joe Biden for the nomination. And he joins me now to talk about what he saw last night. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. And I do want to put up what you posted on X last night after the debate. You wrote, Biden had a very low bar going into the debate and failed to even clear that bar. He seemed unprepared, lost, and not strong enough to parry effectively with Trump, who lies constantly. Lay it on the line for me. How concerned are you about the president being the Democratic nominee? And what are you hearing from other Democrats? Is there a sense of panic in the party right now?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that last night there was a sense of alarm, panic, fear, dread. Any of those words, I think, are appropriate. A lot of text flying back and forth about, what are we going to do now? Biden had probably the lowest bar to clear of any presidential nominee coming into this time summer. Usually it's a fall debate, and he failed to clear that bar. That was obvious, and I think the way to address that is not to try and make people pretend they didn't see something that they did see. It's to do what he's doing. He did this afternoon, to get back up there on the campaign trail and to show that he's still got it, that he's energetic, that he can take command of the campaign and hit his marks and rebuild confidence. And so I think that's the best course for his campaign right now. I still think that it's possible for him to win. Because we have a very partisanized, hyper-partisan country, and whether it's the Republican or the Democrat, we've seen in these last few cycles, you're going to be close. But after last night, it became less likely that he will win. Now it's up to him to rebuild that confidence to make it more likely.
But it sounds like you aren't in a position, at least at this point, where you think he needs to step down. Are you hearing that from others within the Democratic Party? Have there been calls being made? Is there movement behind the scenes? Or do you think the Democrats have kind of settled on the idea that you just have to power through what happened last night?
I think what happened was that this was sort of a dilemma, a predicament, a trap, some might say, that establishment Democrats were walked into, not last night, but over the course of 2 years, where anybody that stepped forward as a potential contender, the idea of having debates, campaign consultants that might think about supporting somebody, all of them were shut down. And so at each juncture, the opportunity for an off-ramp was cut off. And now the party finds itself in this position where you only have 4 months left and you have a convention coming up in 4 or 5 weeks. It is not the optimal time by any measure to actually try and switch course here. It makes it extremely difficult. So I want to be clear. I've said on this network and others publicly that I was never convinced that Joe Biden was the strongest candidate to take the mantle in 2024. I think he had a strong term. I think he has done a lot of great work, and I still think he could win. But I never bought into the idea that he was the strongest contender for 2024, and I think that we're seeing partly why right now.
All right, well, the RNC is already taking advantage of this situation. Here's a new video. I want you to take a listen.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
This guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
There was Secretary Mayorkas was among those in the video that we just showed there. You served in a cabinet-level position. Is this the Joe Biden that you saw yesterday on the debate stage, somebody who's up for this job for another 4 years?
Well, look, it's clear that if you watch his debate in 2012, in 2020, that he's lost a step, but everybody does when they're progressing at that age, right? I mean, that's no surprise. I think voters have baked that into their calculations. But part of the job of politics is also the optics. And we've come to a point where this is a political liability that is so difficult to overcome. And here's the really galling part, is that Donald Trump is actually the one with issues around his stability and that he's unhinged and would take this country in a terrible direction. Not Joe Biden. Joe Biden actually has a track record of doing good, productive work. So there's an irony here, but this is part of politics. This is part of people see and they react to what they see.
I wonder, though, I mean, I spent a lot of time talking to many of your Democratic colleagues up on the Hill today, Mr. Secretary, and it seemed to me their only answer was, well, Donald Trump's a lot worse. And I understand that argument from a Democratic perspective, but if you don't have a candidate that can articulate that their opponent is that much worse, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, at what point do Democrats start to sound the alarm bells and actually do something to try and change the course of this race? Because leading into this debate, there were already signs that the American people were very concerned about the president being up to the job. This only reinforces that. So what can the Democratic Party do besides this idea of, well, he's just got to get out there more, he's got to do more interviews? It seems to be that there needs to be more than just that.
Well, I mean, I would say like a campaign, right, is multifaceted. You have different ways of communicating with voters. And in fact, very, very little of it is this setting of a debate. It's these campaign rallies. It's all of the ads. It's the surrogates that get out there. It's what people see in terms of the work that you're doing out of the White House. So I still believe that Joe Biden can win this race. And I still believe that there's a constituency out there when they take a long, hard look at the choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They're going to say, yeah, maybe I have some reservations about Joe Biden and where he's at, but I just can't go back to 4 years of that meanness, of that chaos, of those lies, the cruelty, the erraticism of Donald Trump. And so I think the point of highlighting how bad Trump is that's real, first of all, and it's going to make a decision. It's going to make a difference in how people make a decision in November.
Well, let me present it to you this way. Are you concerned that the idea of the president stepping down and then getting into a situation where there's a brokered convention that could be potentially messy, there's not a clear alternative, is that right now a worse scenario than what the party currently has with Joe Biden as the nominee?
That is a very hard call right now, because there's only 4 months left. And while I believe that there are folks out there in the Democratic Party, we have a lot of great governors and senators out there who I think could do a fantastic job, who have a good record. These elections are also about name ID. They're about the ability, the time to develop a relationship with the voters and instill confidence in them. So it's not clear. I mean, it's unprecedented, really. And so we don't know the answer to that question, but I believe that the direction the party is going to go in is that Biden is going to be the nominee in November.
Okay, Secretary Castro, we appreciate you being so honest with us. It's been difficult to get that kind of raw honesty in the last 24 hours, so your perspective was very valuable.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.